Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today is the fifth and final part of our 2023 KaffeBox Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Ranking Series. And a reminder on how this series works is that the winners from videos featuring coffees 1 through 6, 7 through 12, 13 through 18, and 19 through 24, as well as 2 wildcards, face off here today to determine our favorite coffee from the entirety of the 2023 KaffeBox Advent Calendar. So let's go ahead and introduce you to our finalists, beginning with day 6, which is the Chelbesa, a wash-processed Ethiopia from Love Coffee, based out of Lund, Sweden. And that coffee finished first place in our part 1 video. Day 11 is the Gravil Sabillon, a wash-processed Honduras from Slöinge Coffee, based out of Slöinge, Sweden. And that coffee finished first place in our part 2 video. Day 13 is the Chevas Geisha 58WX, a wash-processed Panama from Coffea Circulor, based out of Gothenburg, Sweden. And that coffee finished first place in our part 3 video. Day 17 is the Romerillo, a wash-processed Peru from Jacu Coffee Roastery, based out of Ålesund, Norway. And that is our first wild card, as that coffee finished third place in our part 3 video. Day 18 is the Ouroboro NSX, a natural slow-dried and cherry processed Kenya from Coffea Circulor. And that is our second wild card, as that coffee finished second place in our part 3 video. And last we have day 21, which is the Kiangoi washed Kenya from Morgon Coffee Roasters out of Gothenburg, Sweden. And that coffee finished first place in our part 4 video. All right, let's go ahead and move the containers out of the way for the time being. And as always, none of these cups are labeled anywhere except on the bottom. We just like to shuffle them around for good measure, as it gives us an opportunity to discuss what we have on our hands here today for the finals. And if I'm being completely honest, I imagine that this is probably a 3-horse race between the 2 Kenyan coffees and the Panamanian coffee, with that Panamanian Geisha being a pretty heavy favorite, as it's the coffee that left the biggest impression on me the first time around. That being said, I was really impressed by both Kenyan coffees, especially the Kiangoi on that last video, as it definitely exceeded a lot of my expectations. With that being said, I'm hoping that pretty much any of these coffees beat that Panamanian Geisha, as I feel like that would make for much more interesting content. And I did want to give credits to all of the finalists, as I feel all of the coffees that are here in this final deserve their spot in the final, as they are all very nice coffees. I just imagine that those 3 are going to be our first, second, and third place finishers, mostly due to the fact that they're the coffees that I enjoyed the most the first time around. All right, let's go ahead and move these here for the time being. And we'll rank them, my favorite over here, my least favorite over here. Let's go ahead and get started. Cup number 1. Okay, this one right here, we're already off to a pretty positive start, as I feel like whatever this coffee is, it's performing really nice relative to some of my expectations. So this is obviously a stacked final. It's got some really nice, interesting, bright aspects to it and some great sweetness. So I imagine it's going to be one of 2 coffees, but for the time being, it's set the bar pretty nicely, as this one's turning out very nice. So first place for the time being. Let's go ahead and move on to cup number 2. This one right here, a little bit more tame relative to this first cup, though it's still offering some really nice sweetness within the finish itself. A little bit more of some floral attributes present in this one, as opposed to a little bit more of a tart cup with this one over here. I'm going to place it in second place for the time being. Let's go ahead and move on to cup number 3. All right, and here we have our Panamanian Geisha, and it's every bit as good as I remembered, especially from the first time around, and as of right now, it's definitely my clear favorite, and it's definitely setting the bar extremely high for the rest of these coffees. It tastes very much like a Coffea Circulor coffee with immense clarity and some of those bergamot-like attributes. In addition to that, some nice herbal components to it, definitely leading it to being my favorite coffee as of this moment. First place, let's go ahead and move on to cup number 4. Okay, this one right here, also coming out a little bit more on the tame side of things. So I think I've narrowed down to what these 3 coffees are, but I'm actually going to place it in 4th place for right now. I'm not necessarily sold on that being the final spot of this coffee. It's opening up as it's kind of lingering on the palate with a little bit more sweetness. That's why these 3 coffees made it into the finalists, because they all still offer some really nice sweet attributes to them. So very positive start to this blind taste test. Let's keep moving on to cup number 5. Right, and here we have our natural processed Kenyan coffee, and it's completely unmistakable, as it's got such a strong grape cotton candied sweetness to it. And I would not forget this flavor, as the first time around it definitely left an impression on me, and it is once again. I think that it's very nice, and since it offers such nice clarity, I do have to put it in 2nd place for the time being. That's subject to change. It's performing extremely well, though I still think I'm enjoying the Panamanian Geisha a little bit more. So 2nd place for the time being. Let's go ahead and move on to our final cup, cup number 6. Okay, this one right here, also coming out a little bit more tame relative to some of the expectations for it. Interesting. I do have to say, it's still got some really nice sweetness to it. I'm going to move it to right here for right now. And we're going to run through these one more time, because I have a feeling I might have missed something this first time around. I'm extremely confident on what these 2 coffees are, but these final 4, I feel like I might have gotten something a little bit mixed up here. Let's run through them one more time and see if I might want to re-rank something. This one right here, definitely on the more soft floral side of things, so that lends me to believing it's going to be one of 2 coffees. This right here has got a little bit more brightness to it. This one right here, a little bit more herbal. And this one right here, that's what I thought. This one's going to be our other Kenyan coffee. And I kind of mentioned the first time around, the brightness is just really, really interesting. But I think it's more the fruit components that are present within the finish that really seem to be giving this coffee such a wonderful sweetness to it in general. It is a very enjoyable coffee, and that's why I feel like the first time around I couldn't help but notice that brightness. But in addition to that, the fruit components within it, it just got such a strong peachy aspect to it, and that's what really seemed to impress me the first time around with this coffee. So 2nd time around, equally as impressive. I'm going to see how it compares to this coffee, but as of right now, I think that these are still definitely my 3 favorites. I think the last thing we need to do is to determine which coffee is which in these final 3. I am happy with the placement of them, though. Well, I just disagree with myself right there. This one's got a little bit more of a tart aspect to it. All right. I think mostly due to the delicacy, I'm ready to start making some guesses, and I'm happy with the placement. I'm going to say that this one right over here is going to be our Ethiopian coffee, so we'll place it 6. This one right over here, I'm going to say is our Peruvian coffee, which would make it number 17. This one over here then should be our Honduran coffee, which would make it 11. This one right over here is our natural processed Kenyan coffee, which should make it 18. And I want to try these 2 one more time to decide which one is my favorite. That is really, really impressive. I think it's still, unfortunately, the Panamanian coffee. That Kenyan coffee definitely gave it a run for its money. That's saying something. A lot of people know that I'm not the biggest fan of Kenyan coffees, and washed Panamanian Geishas are my favorite in the entire world. So the fact that they made it that close is really impressive. All right, these are the final placements. Let's see how we did. This one right over here I said was our Ethiopian coffee, so it should say number 6. And it is. I think that it still ended up being my favorite of the Ethiopian coffees that were featured in this entire video, so massive credit to this coffee roaster. I think stacking it up against the rest of these coffees just goes to show how stacked the rest of this lineup was, because it finished towards the bottom, even though it was significantly better than the first set of coffees, at least for me. So credits to them on that. The 6th place finish is nothing to be ashamed of. Let's keep moving on. So this one over here I said was our Peruvian Geisha, so it should say 17, and it is. And that's one of the main reasons why it did end up as one of our wild cards, because even though it finished 3rd place in that video, it just went to show the quality that was present within that video, as I found this to still be a very enjoyable coffee. Clarity with both of them. This one just offering a little bit more sweetness in general, though this one right over here a little bit more softer, a little bit more floral. I really enjoyed both of these coffees, and I'm going to enjoy the last that I have of both of them, because they're definitely still earning of a top 5 spot, or top 6 spot. All right. This one right here then should be our Honduras coffee, so it should say number 11, and it is. And I don't really know what to necessarily say about it. The first time around I had it, I was extremely impressed by it. The second time, I still think it's a very good coffee. Once again, I'm going to enjoy the final cups that I do have from all of them. It's got a very interesting tart attribute to it. The first time I described it as unripened pineapple, I could see that again, though this time around I would say maybe a little bit more of like a green apple, that sort of aspect. And the sweetness that's present within the finish, got that candy bar sweetness that I really enjoy. That's probably a little bit of the origin at play there. So really enjoyable coffee. And this coffee roaster earned a spot on my radar, as I'm really hoping to maybe try some other thing from them, as this advent calendar, they seemed to be the one that surprised me the most. All right, this one right over here is number 18, so it should be our natural processed Kenyan coffee, and it is. And I'm not entirely sure what's left to say about Coffea Circulor's Kenyan coffees that haven't already been said. If this is your first time trying one of them, then you've probably noticed just how wild and out there this coffee is. I'll be completely honest, one of the main reasons I don't tend to buy a lot of their Kenyan coffees is because it is a little bit of a crapshoot. This coffee was a crapshoot, so when I looked back and saw that it had an anise note, I began to worry that it might have a little bit of that black licorice-like taste to it. So I was very happy to find that it didn't. It seemed to focus a lot more on the sugary sweetness of this coffee. But that seems to be some of the issues with their other Kenyan coffees. Is last year, the Kenyan coffee that we had basically tasted like essentially an IPA or some sort of jello shot that I found enjoyable the first time around. I just felt like I would have had a hard time drinking the entire cup. So they're very wild, they're very intense, they're very out there. I thought that this one was a better representation of it for me. Very good coffee. All right, this one right over here is our wash process Kenya, so it should say number 21. All right, you guys put up an immense fight. I have to say, there's a strong chance that that coffee will finish in our top 10 coffees of the year list, at the very least as an honorable mention. If not, then the other Kenyan coffee that we've had from Morgon, the Already, was also a very impressive Kenyan coffee. They do a great job with their Kenyan coffees, and this one right here is no exception, as this one really pushed the Panamanian Geisha for that first place spot. It just fell ever so slightly short. And that means our first place finisher is number 13, our washed Panamanian Geisha from Coffea Circulor. And as I kind of said, I didn't necessarily want that coffee to win. We're all rooting for an underdog, and this one being such a massive favorite in this entire series and then ending up winning the entire series, it's not surprising, but I was just hoping something else would pull out a miracle and somehow beat out that coffee. But it is what it is. If I'm being completely honest, I think that the Altieri, the Panamanian Geisha from last year, was a little bit better than this one. And I've even had some of Coffea Circular's other Geishas that I enjoyed a little bit more than this one. But even then, I still think it was a standout winner. I think that these two coffees at the end of the day ended up setting themselves apart from everything else in this advent calendar. So credit to Morgon, credit to Coffea Circulor, but a lot of people know how I feel about Coffea Circulor to begin with. So that's it. That's the end. Massive thanks to everybody that's viewed this series. It was a very enjoyable series. It's one of my favorite things to do the entire year, so I'm looking forward to doing something similar or the exact same thing again next year with KaffeBox's advent calendar. So massive shout outs to KaffeBox, as I really enjoy this thing that they do every single year. It's a very enjoyable one, and thanks to everybody once again for watching. So if you guys did enjoy this series, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been part 5 of our 2023 KaffeBox Advent Calendar Blind Taste Test Ranking Series. Thank you for watching.